A. John Steinbeck's novella of Mice and Men was originally published in 1937. It's the story of companionship in a world where nearly everyone is isolated. The book explores how we can build and sustain our dreams through the bonds we share with others, but it also depicts how those dreams can crumble when we're alone. This little book is familiar to so many because it's often assigned reading in school. The characters are memorable, especially the friendship between the two primary figures, George and Lenny. These two characters are perfectly juxtaposed, with George being small but sharp of feature and mind, while Lenny is massive with soft features and a simple outlook. The interplay between these two old friends is wonderful and makes for the best humor and emotion in the novella. Within the 6 short chapters, readers meet other notable characters, including Candy, Crooks, Curly, and his unnamed wife. But all of them serve to play off the central friendship between George and Lenny and to drive the simple plot forward. The two friends come to a ranch where they work bucking barley and hope to roll together enough money to one day buy their own humble plot of land. The unique voices of the characters bring a lot of life to this novella, as the narration swings between precise and beautiful descriptions of setting to conversations full of colloquial banter. But it is far from lighthearted stuff, as we realize that these people are lonely due to a number of complex social factors in Depression-era America, including race, gender, and age. Of Mice and Men is a quick, easy read, which is part of its charm. But there's also a depth to its themes and a truth to its lessons, and that's part of the magic too. It helps explain why this novel is still being enjoyed by readers nearly 90 years after its original publication.
The first time I read this book over 20 years ago, it was from this Penguin Mass Market edition. It features an illustration of the two main characters sitting by the water, surrounded by wildlife, including a rabbit in the foreground. This artwork has always reminded me of Old Style Pilsner, which is an iconic Western Canadian beer. It has bunny rabbits on it, George. The book itself has orange and black trim, and it's beat up and old. I'm too fancy to read pocketbooks these days, so when I had the chance to upgrade to a more deluxe version of such an iconic book, I had to take it. So let's do this. Here we have Of Mice and Men from the Folio Society. This version was originally released in 2018 and is presented in a printed slipcase with straight edges. The case itself has a wonderful wraparound image designed by James Albin. One side features Lenny lying on the grass, petting a rabbit in front of a setting orange sun, and the other features the ranch and the surrounding landscape, fields, mountains, and sky. The book itself features a cover image and title made up from a silhouette of George and Lenny carrying their bundles in dark brown. This is on top of a Napura canvas paper, which invokes the color and texture of a burlap sack. On the curved spine, we note the author name, the title, and the publisher logo, all in brown. The binding here is finished with two-tone brown bands. When we crack the book open, we see plain brown end papers in a medium stock. The book is printed on Schleppen wove paper, which is very thick and smooth. This paper stock is much thicker than the Abbey wove paper that Folio typically uses for the text block, and it comes in at a cream white according to my color swatches. It also feels especially luxurious in hand. If we bring back the Penguin Pocketbook edition for a brief side-by-side, we can see that the Folio Society version is obviously much bigger, with 3 centimeters more in the height and 3.5 centimeters in the width. The font size is larger with more generous margins that enhance the readability of the book. This slab font holds the whole book together, from spine to cover to the half title to the title page to the drop caps which appear at the beginning of each new chapter. Unlike most modern folio novels, there is no introduction here, which is unfortunate. However, there is a brief biography for the primary contributors to the folio edition, which continues to be something that I appreciate when included. Beyond what we've seen on the slipcase and cover, artist James Albin provides 5 black and white and 4 color interior illustrations here. He's an author and artist who typically works with paint and printmaking, including lino cuts. He might be familiar to folio fans for his work on Parade's End, but has also released a handful of original graphic novels. In Of Mice and Men, the black and white lino cut illustrations are integrated throughout the text, while the color images are presented on a thick textured paper. There is no table of contents for the illustrations, but let's take a detailed look at that artwork now. The first illustration, the frontispiece, is done in gorgeous blues and yellows, perfect for an evening scene. Lenny and George sit by a fire in a clearing in a bush near a stream, chatting before they heat up their 3 cans of beans for supper. The expression of concern on Lenny's face and his posture is fantastic, but I'm not sure about George's face. Is it meant to be lighted by the fire? The rest of the lighting effects in the lino cut are far more successful, like the glow along this tree and its leaves, but especially in emanating out from the pit and lighting one side of the men. The next piece is a black and white integrated illustration at the bottom of these pages. It depicts the ranch where the bulk of the story occurs. We can see various buildings and machinery on the ranch, which sits surrounded by these gentle hills. The variety of line types and the balance of light and dark make for a great lino cut image here. The third illustration is another integrated black and white piece, a bit of a portrait of Slim, the jerkline Skinner, who's described as the Prince of the Ranch. He sits at the bunkhouse table chatting with George, who holds a playing card, likely laying out his solitaire hand, which is a habit the character often indulges in. Then we have a 2-page color spread that pulls back from the previous image. Slim and George still sit at the table, but now we can see more of the bunkhouse, with Old Candy petting his ancient dog, as Carlson stands above him, insisting that the dog be put out of its misery. The line work on Carlson's face helps convey his firm conviction in this moment, as he won't be deterred from his message, and his cold depiction stands in sharp contrast to the gentle gesture shared between man and dog here. There's a nice attention to detail on the part of the artist here for including all the 4-cornered shapes in the bunkhouse, which is dominated by them. The fifth illustration is of a memorable scene from the end of the 3rd chapter, when the ranch boss's son Curly attacks Lenny. He strikes Lenny in the face, making him bleed, until George tells Lenny to retaliate. The big man catches Curly's punch in midair and crushes his hand. Here we can see Curly writhing in agony, and he's completely helpless while Lenny looks upset and confused, which aligns with the narrative description perfectly. The 6th image is an integrated black and white piece which depicts Crooks, the stable buck. He lives in separate quarters from the other men on the ranch due to the unfair racial attitudes of the time. He's applying liniment to his injured spine, and all around him we can see his possessions, which are mentioned in the text. His boots and clothing, his glasses and clock, and most importantly his vast collection of books, as Crooks is the most well-read individual on the ranch. Then we get another black and white piece of the men playing horseshoes. The illustration is cleverly integrated with the text here, as we have the group of men up here, with their target down here. The 8th piece is a 2-page color spread of Lenny looking down in dismay at Curly's wife, whom he has just killed by accidentally breaking her neck. We can also see the body of the dead pup in a similar position in the hay, but the huge dark form of Lenny really dominates this illustration. And that brings us to a black and white integrated illustration of Lenny's final moments. He sits on the edge of the water, looking out with his hat off. The hills and foliage are beautiful here as George contemplates what he's about to do, as Carlson's Luger pistol lies next to his hand. I'm really pleased to own this copy of John Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men. It's been sold out for some time from Folio's website, so you're going to have to turn to the secondary market if you want to find yourself a copy of it. Personally, the 1992 film version of Mice and Men starring Gary Sinise and John Malkovich is pretty iconic in my mind, and when rereading the novel, it was hard not to picture that adaptation of the text. But the artwork in this folio edition is also very iconic, and it might just provide me with a new set of mental images every time I think about this story going forward. There's truly no better testament to the power of an illustrated novel than that. As for my old paperback edition, it's the box of doom for you. Because with Folio's illustrated edition now on my shelf, I have my forever copy of Steinbeck's best novella. As always, thanks for watching, and keep an eye out for future videos. When it comes to the stories you love, it's always worth upgrading your books.